Well, I guess we're getting right into this. There isn't a proper title screen here. Gun-Dec is an oddly rare Famicom game. I've only had my copy about 4 weeks at the time of this recording, and it was one of the final 3 games I needed to complete my collection. And while pricey, it's not one of the more expensive Famicom games. It can be found, when copies are available, for about 6,000 yen. That does make it one of the rare games where it's more expensive to get the Famicom version than the NES version. Gun-Dec is the last Famicom game by developer ICOM. We saw them a few days ago with Taito Basketball, but when they weren't making terrible basketball games, they really seemed to specialize in story-heavy action. They made the second Golgo 13 game, Magical Kids Doropie, and Magic John. Some very interesting games that also had some rough edges. Gun-Dec is an action game that really wears its influences on its sleeve. It really wants to be Ninja Ryu Kenden, but bigger. And maybe with a bit of Batman. There's a very extensive story here told through the cutscenes. In the 22nd century, crime is on the rise, and it's up to the officers of the Vice Division to stop it. Hart receives a call about an out-of-control truck, and when he stops it, he finds a junkie partially transformed into a monster, carrying a super gun, and hauling a load of 100% synthetic cocaine. Now he has to fight his way through an army of mutants and ninjas to get to the bottom of this. There are 3 different game modes in Gun-Dec, and the driving mode that starts the game is one of the least used of them. The B button fires your car's machine guns, while the A button adjusts your car's speed. There's 3 levels and you cycle up and down them. Basically, the driving stages are shoot-'em-ups. Once you've defeated the boss at the end of that driving stage, the next stage is in a style which virtually all of the rest of the game is. A side-scrolling action platformer. Here, A jumps and B attacks, and Hart carries 3 different weapons with him. You have to hit select to rotate through the weapons. The basic lightsaber is actually probably what you're going to want to use in most cases. It doesn't consume any ammo like the other 2 weapons. It has a pretty wide arc when you attack with it. Enemies that would go above or below other attacks wind up getting hit by it. There's also a few bosses where it's an absolute necessity, either because it's the only thing that can reach the boss's weak point, or because it's the only thing that can deflect the boss's attacks. When you feel the need for a bit more reach, there's the blaster. You generally have plenty of ammo for this, and it just fires a shot a short distance ahead of you. The problem with the blaster is that its range is a lot shorter than you'd expect. It's barely longer than the lightsaber. And it's a small bullet, so enemies close to the ground or flying often aren't hit by it. The third weapon is the bomb, which are just grenades you toss out in a little arc. When they hit something, they explode. This is the rarest weapon, and probably the trickiest one to use effectively. The only place I wound up really using them heavily is against bosses. When you destroy an enemy, it will always drop something. It could be bullets for the blaster or bombs, a bottle or some meat to restore some health, or a coin. If you collect 100 coins, then you earn an extra life. When you die in Gun-Dec, you lose any ammo that you've accumulated, but you always retain the coins. Even if you continue, you retain the coins. The third gameplay mode is a shooting gallery, where the B button fires the blaster and the A button throws grenades. And in this mode, you are using up the limited ammo that you have. Fortunately, most of the enemies drop ammo here, though you do have to shoot it to collect it. Although Gun-Dec isn't an especially difficult game, it does have a lot of really cruel level design. Especially by the point where you reach the mid-game, they really love placing enemies just off-screen from the pit that you have to jump over. If I ever look like I'm doing good in these clips from stage 4 and above, it's because it's the 7th or 8th time I've had to repeat that level, and I've memorized all of the enemy locations. Gun-Dec just gets nasty with those surprise attacks. So it's fortunate that you're pretty tough in this game. If it's not a boss, it's probably not doing a whole lot of damage to you. The fact that the bosses do heavy damage is the only thing that makes them tough. They all have fairly simple patterns that are easy to learn, and then it just becomes a matter of executing your attacks perfectly, because it only takes a few hits for the boss to defeat you. Gun-Dec also features one of my least favorite programming errors in a platformer. If you're on a platform that's going down, then every other frame you're in the air, and 50% of the time when you try to jump off of it, the jump button does nothing. It's especially a problem in the early game when there's an entire stage built around the floor collapsing. At least you have infinite continues. Just hit start when it says game over. In Japan, Gun-Dec is generally considered one of the Famicom's masterpieces. A game that has an amazing presentation, along with plenty of great action. While the original game might not have sold well, response to it was so favorable that a sequel was planned. It was going to be released on the Mega Drive, and the rumor is that it was completed before being shelved, but at this time no prototype has surfaced. My own take on Gun-Dec is that it is pretty good. I don't know if I'd go with masterpiece. That level design does wind up being pretty cruel, but overall the game is still a lot of fun. I really would have liked to have seen that sequel.